Today, I would like to tell you 2 stories about John Napier, the Scottish mathematician who lived from 1549 until 1617. He was a colorful figure, and these 2 stories are anecdotal accounts that I enjoy. The first story, Napier and the Birds. It came to pass that John Napier had a neighbor who kept pigeons, but the neighbor did not control these pigeons and let them fly free. The pigeons would often come across the border into Napier's territory on his estate and eat the crops in the fields. Napier could not allow this to continue. At first, he tried diplomatic solutions by going over to his neighbor, explaining the situation and urging him to keep the birds under control. But the neighbor did not feel like doing this and refused. "What can I do?" he would say. "Birds, they fly. How can I control that?" Now, there were obvious ways to control that, which Napier offered, but again, the neighbor refused. John Napier knew that killing the birds would be excessive and would cause an incident that might lead to more violence, which was not the kind of conclusion he cared to have in a case like this. But one thing Napier was famous for was creative problem solving. He was the type of person you think of when you hear the phrase Renaissance man. He dabbled in many things, was brilliant and creative, a little bit like a Scottish Leonardo da Vinci. Well, he came up with a solution. He took some dried peas, put them in a shallow tray, and filled that tray with brandy, strong alcoholic drink, and the peas absorbed it. Then John Napier took those alcohol-soaked peas and spread them out in the fields in areas where birds had been sighted. He sat back, hidden, to wait, and the birds arrived, flying towards the fields. Flap, 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 they flew, and then they landed in the fields, and the birds looked around. They saw the crops they were used to eating, and then, oh my, they saw those alcoholic peas, and they ate them up Nom, 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 nom. They ate the peas. And then, plop, 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 the birds fell down drunk in the field. John Napier emerged from hiding. He lifted a large sack he had with him, and he picked up each bird and put it in the sack. Plop, 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 into the sack the drunken birds fell. Whoosh, over his shoulder he threw the sack, and crunch, 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 he walked across to his neighbor's manor. Knock, knock, knock at the door of the castle. And when the neighbor's servant answered the door, John Napier asked for his neighbor and went in to see the man. And he presented him with the birds, intoxicated, in a bag. And, my friends, after that, John Napier did not have trouble with birds flying across to his property any more. Story number 2. One thing that John Napier was famous for was that he fancied himself a sorcerer. This was a common enough thing among mathematicians of this era. John Napier played this up very much, dressing in black and often going out with a big black rooster. And people said that the rooster was his familiar. Well, despite this reputation, John Napier once had a servant who was stealing from the household. Well, John Napier knew the stealing was going on, but did not know who it was. So he made all his servants to assemble in the great hall. And he told them, "My rooster is in that room. Each of you will go into the room and lay your hand on the bird, and I will find out who it is that has been stealing from my household." One by one, the servants went to the room, opened the door, went inside, found the rooster, and in a few moments emerged, and John Napier observed them closely as they exited. He told each to go back to where he or she was standing. When every servant had gone into the room, John Napier walked up and down the line, looking at the hands of every person, until he found his culprit. He found the culprit because, unbeknownst to the servants, John Napier had sprinkled black soot on the feathers of the bird and put it tied to a table in a dark corner of the room. And he knew who the culprit was because that person's hands were still clean. Because that person had been afraid to touch the bird, lest it would tell John Napier of his guilt. I hope you've enjoyed these two folkloric and anecdotal stories of John Napier, Renaissance Scottish mathematician and self-proclaimed sorcerer, a very interesting mathematical personality. Take care now.